So, hey everybody out there on the internet. I haven't got my introduction down, so just kind of forgive me on that. But I have the action movie dad, aka Mr. Daniel. He has. I try to memorize all his stats, but it's so many attributes. I'm just gonna get the highlights off of YouTube. But he has over, what was it, 400 and it's like over 500 uh plays, and that's just on YouTube alone. We're not talking about Twitter, we're not talking about Facebook, we're not talking about Instagram, we're not talking about people reposting it and things of that nature, because a lot of times they repost it. He has over a million subscribers. I don't think I've even seen a million people in my entire life. I don't think I ever will. I don't think I want to. But I mean, he's done so much. I mean, he's working with children. If anybody who has children, that's a feat in itself. Just to work with anybody under the age of, initially I was saying 10, but I'm gonna say anybody under the age of 21. Sorry for you young people, but so I mean,
Yes, you're.
so much. I'm not good at my intros, but I'm a super fan. I've been watching I've been watching his tutorials and how he does his, like, he has 2 YouTube channels, his behind the scenes channel. It's so awesome stuff. But Mr. Daniel right here.
Hey, oh man, thanks. I'm blushing. Excellent. Thank you so much for having me. This is great.
Awesome. Thanks,
Yeah.
thanks for being here. So I like to just jump straight into it. Okay. I
Let's
like to
do it.
start with, like, when you were in high school.
hmm
Okay, what was your, like, coming out of high school? Like, you was like, all right, I'm coming out of high school. Did you just go straight into it? It's action movie dad, and you have a couple of kids, and just get this thing started, or how did you end up to the place you are now?
So it's interesting because my high school persona was I like carved out this little position for me and my friends at our high school, which was filming skits for all of the high school assemblies.
Oh wow.
My friend Matthew and Mike, we would just film all these crazy things with like willing and unwilling participants, add visual effects to them, and then make little like parodies or movie trailers and stuff like that, or like mimic an action movie, whatever. And so I was like, I want to be a filmmaker. So from high school, I sought film school
Mm-hmm.
and was lucky and privileged enough to go to USC Film,
Wow.
which was a tremendous amount of fun, where I met a whole new group of creative minds and really cool people. In that atmosphere, I ended up gravitating a lot toward doing visual effects
Mm.
and working with After Effects, which had become just this program that, like, the two of us just got along so well. Like, it thinks the way I think. It's such a workhorse kind of program. And so I spun those skills into doing freelance graphic gigs and things like that,
Wow.
and had these like filmmaker-esque aspirations.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I'm like, what, I'm 21 or 2 coming out of college, and then get a job at DreamWorks Animation as a PA,
Wow.
which was a ton of fun.
Right.
It was sort of right at the stage where a lot of artists are making the transition from physical to digital, and I really embraced what they were trying to do and tried to help become a good part of the pipeline at DreamWorks, getting them on the digital wave of things. And that led to me creating an After Effects department who would do previs for the story reels and also pre-visualization with the art, and eventually things like the 2D sequences in the Kung Fu Panda movies.
Wow.
Or the intro sequences from the Croods and things like that, which were really fun.
Ooh.
And so all of this happened, and I felt like I worked at DreamWorks for a full decade, where I felt like I'm a full grown adult. I have an insurance plan. I've got, benefits, and I met my beautiful wife, Mandy, there, who is an amazing artist as well. And yeah, we got married, we had a kid, and suddenly, like, I had this huge throwback to basically my high school self, which was, once you have kids, you're suddenly playing with tons of home video.
Right.
And I couldn't help but just like want to do, like, escape from like my daily routine by doing the same stuff that I had done back in high school, which
Right.
is
Right.
just like mess around,
Mm-hmm.
add visual effects to
Experiments.
stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it created this whole life of its own. So it was really absurd, but it ended up all pulling me right back to filming low key stuff with my family,
Wow.
adding visual effects and making dumb shorts for people.
Awesome stuff. So that's amazing to me. Like I just envision like the first day, like you, cause I was it like, okay, I'm gonna go shoot something and make something cool, or was it like, oh, I have this footage on my phone, or let me see if I can turn it into something cool.
I think that it was like a combo of just when I see someone do something that's a little bit cinematic, like I kind of giggle at it or imagine like, oh, that would be funny if like that Olympian like fell into a flaming thing of lava or whatever when he did this thing or
Right.
something. And so I think my kid was playing. Um, he had learned about Iron Man and that Iron Man could shoot repulsor rays out
Right.
of his hands, and so he. I think at breakfast was shooting things in the room. I was like, "Oh, I do that again," and so he was pretending to shoot the front door and did that, and I went back and edited a little like laser onto it and like
Wow.
posted it on Facebook,
Mm.
which at the time was less problematic. And um, my parents weren't on Facebook, but like all of my friends were, and I just wanted our home videos to look like we were either endangering our child or just something goofy happening during them. So I just started doing more and more of that, and then was like, oh, my parents should see these, so I'll grab them all, I'll upload them to YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And there they sat for like 2 months,
Uh-huh.
and like my parents would watch them or check them, or like family would see them, some of my high school friends and stuff. And then one day someone had made a gif of one of them and put it on Reddit, which made it to the front page. And the clever redditors were like, oh, that comes from this thing, and then started posting the links. And from that,
It exploded.
um it exploded. There were 1 million views that day, and we were on Good Morning America the next morning.
Wow.
And it was, yeah, I mean, yeah, I tell the story a lot, so
Wow. I mean,
but yeah.
I mean, like, so just the moment that always interests me is like that one moment you look at the phone and it's like, is this really real? Are these many views? Is it really going viral? Is like, take me to that moment. Like, how did you second guess it, or was it like, oh yeah, I expected, or
I had not expected it. And
uh-huh.
so I hadn't thought about trying to name the channel well or brand it or put any kind of like cards or promotion or like anything. Like I was just like, these are so my like people can see them and they're kind of funny. And I also like just to anonymize, like James was like, oh, he's an action movie kid, which wasn't taken. And so
Wow.
like I was like, imagination kid, no, there's one of those. I don't know, action movie kid, there's not one of those. Perfect. And so yeah, the moment was basically, I think the first indicator was my friend, another great artist, Brittany
Right.
Biggs, called me just like from the work phone, was like, oh my God, dude, have you seen Reddit? And I was like, no. And so I went to Reddit, and then my phone started ringing off the hook at work, and it was either friends like at DreamWorks just
Right.
calling from their extension saying,
Yeah.
hey, dude, you're on the thing.
Wow.
And then suddenly it was like news people being put through, which I
Wow.
guess like you could just like call up DreamWorks and ask for a person and they'll put you through. I don't know, but
So they just kind of they was your information out there? Because I'm
I
imagining
mean,
it's like they had to Google search you and just kind of find out where you work at, or what?
yeah, like there was some decent. I think that it may have all been Redditors being like, oh, the dude, like Daniel Hashimoto, his name comes up for like a couple of like DreamWorks movies. I think he's an animator,
Right.
which I was not. And I felt very bad for all the like actual animators at DreamWorks who are like super skilled people who are like, this fucking guy's not an animator. But yeah, it was a really cool experience, and my wife and I all thought that it would be like a really cool week.
Wow.
And so like that's because like I know like web stuff turns over so fast.
Yeah, it is.
I put no stock in it because
Mm-hmm.
I'm not like in my 20s and
Mm-hmm.
seeking viral hits.
Right.
I'm 30 something and want normalcy in my life and
Exactly.
an insurance plan and
Yeah.
stuff. So I'm like, cool, this is neat, and
Right.
the kids can enjoy it for the next week, and then we'll go back to normal. But the videos after that initial bump would get so many
Wow.
views that more and more people started to reach out to me either to show the videos, and then eventually UTA, United Talent Agency, reached
Mm-hmm.
out to represent me, which
Mm-hmm.
was really cool.
Oh.
And at the time, it was neat. I I hit sort of right at the same time that a lot of creators were being asked to do cool like commercial entanglements
Mm.
and like do promotional videos and things like that. And we had a unique brand where we're sort of like a post, you know, like an effects house
Right.
doing stuff, but it's just really like me, my wife, and like a few of my friends like would join and like help me make this or that one, which were
Wow.
yeah
So
really
all
cool.
this happened in the span of like what? I'm thinking a week, 2 weeks, a month, 3 months.
It really felt like maybe 3 or 4 days to just be overwhelmed by the number
Wow.
of people commenting and watching videos. And then the next week was full of like lunches and meetings
Wow.
and calls and things like that. Um, Culminating in what I think was my biggest uh, reason to retire from DreamWorks, which was uh, Toys R Us. Really loved the videos and
Mm-hmm.
loved that I'd set one of them in a Toys R Us and said, "Hey, we want to make some of those as
Mm-hmm.
commercials." And so I thought that could be fun.
Yeah.
And so I assumed they meant like they were going to send me to like with my kid to just go do
Right.
more of them or something or sponsor. But instead, it was actually they hired me to direct about 60 commercials for
60?
their summer and winter. Yes, um, spots that year for their "Come On,
Wow.
Let's Play" thing, which they they gave me a huge list of toys that they said they wanted to promote for the summer,
Mm-hmm.
and I wrote an ad concept. I mean, they're you know they're short bits, you know they're
Right.
15-second gag kind of things, but I wrote one for every toy they sent me. We
Oh.
made the our favorite ones, and then um, I, I I I wasn't taking it seriously
Mm-hmm.
until I was suddenly at a casting session and auditioned 200 kids
Wow.
in this span, and then something like 40 adults as you know Toys R Us
Right.
employees and stuff. And I was like, it's like a real thing. So you have like there's going to be like real people doing this stuff, and it was pretty cool. I had to take some time off from work to shoot the
Oh
commercials,
yeah.
and then back to back there were commercial opportunities lining
Wow.
up similar to that, and at some point it wasn't feasible for me to go back
Wow.
to DreamWorks, and so I ended up going back and saying I'm gonna try this path out for a while.
How was that the Mike? That it's always a moment in a creative, like well not creative, anyone's life. We have to make that like that plunge, right? Where you're like you're halfway here, and you're halfway there. So like, take me to the moment where you was like, okay, this is huge. Do I quit? Because DreamWorks is not a small company. You're quitting DreamWorks. You know what I mean? You can always
For
come back,
sure.
but it has to be a moment in there. It's like, okay, do I leave DreamWorks and I branch out and do my own thing, or
it
like,
was
I
oh,
mean, was it your
it
stomach
was
just
hard.
bubbling the whole day and
Oh yeah, it was like it took me a long time. It was about an 8 month decision process is what sort of we
oh,
realized, because like my agent at
uh-huh.
UTA, which I feel so Hollywood, it was like he's like, okay, like what are you making at DreamWorks, and like what'll it like people are interested in booking you, like
Right.
what like right now your time is limited because you have a job, but like if you were free, what would it take to pull you away from that job? And I was like, I can't, man. There's and like I've got insurance and savings and retire, like everything is in this job. It's a real job, and I've been here for 10 years. I can't just jump away from it. And
Shoot.
so eventually, like my agent just like slowly whittled me down of saying like, okay, like here's how you would do it, here's
Uh-huh.
how this would work.
Wow.
And then I started talking to my wife on the financial side because she's much smarter with numbers than I am, and was saying like, well, you'd have to make this much to replace insurance, you'd have to make this much to replace
Oh, you got
daily, like like all
yeah.
these things, until eventually we were like how could we, but YouTube is finicky, and like how
Right.
could we secure that? And at the time, interestingly, Disney had just bought Maker Studios, which was a primarily YouTube
Right.
studios, and Maker um proposed a contract with us for 2 years of content.
Awesome.
So effectively Disney sponsored, but not technically Disney sponsored. I could do whatever I wanted.
Awesome.
But Disney would every now and then pull us in to like do a Moana thing or a Star Wars thing or something like that,
that's
which
awesome.
is cool.
That makes a leap of faith a lot easier.
Yes. And so they laid out the next 2 years for us. And I said, like, okay, on paper, I can see that this is competitive with my actual job, and I'm willing to do it. And I had talked to like one of the studio heads at DreamWorks at the time. I was like, what do I do, man? And he was like, you like this. It was a difficult decision. I had such a family at DreamWorks, and luckily, stayed in touch with the majority of them, and still get to every now and then like help one out on a movie, but like for shorter stints, and still get to do this as my primary.
Oh, that's awesome. That is awesome. That's an amazing story. Like that is like taking an opportunity and then capitalizing on it. So that's huge. A lot of times I think people get opportunities and they're like, you never want to look back and say, man, what if I would have took the plunge versus, taking the more traditional route.
For sure. And like I still have like, there have been plenty of decisions along the way where I'm like, did I do that the right way, or did I mess this up in a major way? But it's all, I really like where I am. I really like what I'm doing. And so I feel like my life is super suited to me right now, which is great.
That's awesome. So I guess I'm going to get a quick question. How has COVID, boom, 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 how has that affected your day-to-day? Like, because I see a lot of the videos you do are at home, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I see you like, I don't know, put the ratio in there, but there's some videos at home and there's some videos off and going different places and stuff like that. So how's that affected you?
Well, it is, I've been working for Red Giant part-time, and I've been doing Action Movie Kid in the background, like in my spare hours in the last couple of years. And so I've been really used to just being in my office, and that's what my workday is like. Right. The biggest difference was suddenly my 2 stars from Action Movie Kid are living at home and needing schooling, wow, which is entirely different. And I don't want to pretend that the burden was mostly on me. The burden was mostly on my wife, who is an author and amazing, writes with me for Action Movie Kid, and awesome, is usually the production designer of anything that has props for us. And suddenly, like, she's got this commitment to have the kids with her for this huge amount of time, and I'm trying to do my best to figure out how to divide that up so it's not crazily unbalanced. But it certainly was a huge toll on my wife's creativity and what she could do during her day for the sake of me getting to goof off and do stuff during the day. So what I try to do is just make it so whatever I'm doing has more of a meaning behind it, maybe. I've been a little bit more politically active on Twitter, and I've been a little bit more, maybe less carefree with my time than I have been, just because we're all closer, and there are so many. I mean, it's such an interesting time to be alive. So like so many things are suddenly a lot more obvious and a lot louder, and like you realize all the things that you were doing out of habit that are are silly.
It's such a weird time to be, because you look back like 500 years, 300 years, whatever, with because I feel like the internet started somewhere in somebody's office or something like that, right? It's just one big machine, right? And then it became commercialized. So because my first computer was like a Tandy, so it then became commercialized and people had it, but it was something like you used it for work. It wasn't a play tool.
Yeah.
And then AOL came in, then the community kind of hit, and then it started growing. Then MySpace and all the social networks. Then like I feel like the last 10 years it went mobile, right? And it's like, oh my god, you can put it in your pocket. So now people are taking it, and then like I feel like the technology is hitting us and we're just responding to it. And so a lot of things that we're seeing happening, like requires video, or even good videos, bad videos, but it feels like the internet is just happening so fast. It's like just taking over everything that we're just like reacting to it. Just like, okay, what's gonna happen in the next 3 years? Like, I don't know, because now But the streaming thing is going so crazy. Like you're seeing live, and then
Yeah.
it's like there's just so many things happening at once. I feel like companies are being more transparent. They're putting like, here's our 2020 updates. Like, whoa, this is crazy. Like I get to see what you're working on, and look forward to it. So I think it's just like the weird thing is just the internet is just. I feel like I'm sitting here watching the internet. And I'm like the only person like, this is crazy. How did this happen? Yo, it's
yeah,
just
it's so
everything.
much. And also, like, I feel like I certainly am a big victim of letting the pace of the internet
Right.
or the, you know, the the serotonin boost of
Right.
watching like likes and retweets or video share like of stuff.
Right.
I mean, first of all, it was like important to me as a business model,
Of course.
and that sort of replaced, whatever else, like whatever other kind of performance metric you could come up with. And so suddenly these things that aren't very humanistically important are suddenly these things that I'm obsessing over or like pulling my attention away to do. And I'm hoping that this pandemic and living all together is reforming a little bit of my brain and trying to take it away from that, because it's so easy to become addicted to this feed of bright, colorful, amazing information.
Yeah.
And I say that all as somebody who's also trying to put out a feed of colorful, distracting information in a time like this. So yeah, it's weird. I'm trying to like be part of this world and live within it, and also not not let myself or kids become, victims of it, which is really weird to try to a weird balance.
I think it's like, I know mental health is like a hot button topic, whatever, but I feel like with creatives, because working in the studio, I don't want to say this, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. Like mental health and creative is like, I feel like it's almost hand in hand, because you're you work in the studio and somebody comes to your desk like, look, it's 2:00 by tomorrow first thing in AM. We need the best thing we ever seen. It's got to be cool. It's got to be awesome. And you're like, and the person walks away like, oh my god, I gotta come up with something. And I feel like as a creative, you constantly, especially working the studio, you gotta constantly come up with cool things and new things. And you get your grunt work here and there, but I think the pressure of creativity, you know what I mean, of producing, like, okay. And then you see your results, and because I was doing a lot in social and doing social posts, it's like, okay, I put something out. How many likes? Oh, not enough likes. Oh, not enough views. I'm fired. That's it. I'm done.
Oh yeah, it's so easy to like imagine what the directly proportional like thing is, because like you can just see numerically like how well your thought was liked out there, and that's so immediate compared to like at DreamWorks. I mean, like animated movies of all things, I mean, they take years and years, and like it's why they are always having joke passes as late in the game as you can, because like the rest of the jokes are written 2 years ago, and if you have something topical in there, it's gonna be embarrassing when it comes out. And so suddenly to go from like a studio environment where it's like, hurry up and get this done by the end of the week so we have something to show at our screening for a movie that comes out in 2 years, was so different than like, oh, like you should do a video on this thing because it's really popular this week and people will have forgotten about it by next week. And like if you miss if you miss the trend chasing wave, you miss out on this type of viewership and that type of viewership. And I'm in the middle. I'm so impulsive and have such a short attention span that like my Twitter feed is the best representation of my mind being fragmented in every different direction. And maybe the program is just straight up unhealthy. Because it's but
so
I feel like,
what do you do for like, okay, you have I feel like you have so much, you have to come with so many different ideas, like daily, just ideas, and you can see direct response with your ideas. So what do you do like to offset that? Are you like play video games? Do you know what I mean? Or do you like long walks on the beach, or do you like, okay, is it more extreme? Like how do you like get your downtime in? What would be my question?
Like my downtime is basically the time that I spend with my family and kids. Like that's sort of how I look at it, because like we'll joke, but it's also like sad. Like my mistress is my computer. If I am like, I would create all day and feel great doing that. And yeah, I think I've always been that way since high school. Like I'll stay up late, I'll work overnight on things. I just like I have to create something or I'll go crazy.
Yeah.
And so the downtime is usually just like trying to realize, I mean, especially in COVID, it's been really helpful just to
Right.
say, like, hey, I can just be here. I can charge my phone in a different room
Mm-hmm.
and we'll go out and tie a bunch of ropes to a tree and make a little fort in
Yeah.
it and do something
Absolutely.
like that. I like to work with my hands and make stuff when I'm not editing and making stuff here. I just think I like to
Mm-hmm.
produce things like that. And
To
so I
make
love
things.
playing
Okay.
imagination games with my kids
Mm-hmm.
because they get to imagine stuff. And then, I mean, like, of course, like after like 9 p.m. as a parent, I'm just like, I just want to
I'm
turn it on the
done.
TV and not think about anything.
So, I guess how is it working with the kid? Because here's the funny story. Like we're watching all the videos. My daughters look at me and they're like, I have two daughters, 6 and 8, and they're like, Dad, you got to step it up. It's like, do you know how much time, you know how much energy, how much work goes into that? Like that's planning, man. They're like, I don't, because kids don't understand I guess not even kids. I feel like no one really understands the amount of energy
Yeah,
and work. It's
like
like, man,
major producers of movies don't
yeah.
understand
It's
the
like,
work that goes into their product. Yeah,
I look
but
at that and I'm like, oh man, that's a lot of work. Oh, and the shot's moving too. Oh, not a moving shot. Oh no, no. So it's weird to see that, but like my kids they're amazed by it, and it's so it's smaller shots, and so the kids like they binge them. They just go through the whole thing, but it's crazy. Like, how is it like working with children? How
like
I mean, like, I know they're your kids, and so you're working with. I know that's great, like bonding time. That's great time to just cherish them and whatnot. And like watching your videos, I can watch your kid grow up. I'm like, oh my good, volume one, volume two.
uh,
Like you're literally watching a child grow up through life. You know what I mean? From through the videos,
yeah,
but like how is it like working with like your children, and
yeah.
how is that relationship? I feel like it strengthens your relationship with your children and with your daughter, and how does
I love to hope so. Like I mean, it's funny because the like something I would have never wanted to be was any form of stage parent, like trying to like force my kids to do stuff so dad can make money on a thing or
mm,
whatever. So
right,
like that's always been pretty important to my wife and I is to like not ruin them via exposure to this type of a thing
right,
and to keep it fun for them. So I credit my wife with a lot of that because it's like I'm learning to be a parent
mm,
as I'm learning to do this new thing, these YouTube video things. And like we've got a system down, but like just like a marriage or your kids as they
mm,
age up, like you're always coming up with new systems to make things run smoothly in the house. Like you're always learning a little bit. There's that interesting moment where you realize, oh man, the stuff that my kid likes won't necessarily just be the stuff that I liked as a kid, and I've got to try to grow with them. And so at first, like, like I want him to be a mini version of me. And like I want him to love Star Wars and I want him to love all these things that I thought were really funny or cool when I was growing up. Or I'll put them in a Stranger Things parody because I love Stranger Things and they're kids, the age
right,
of Stranger Things. But then they're acting into these fantasies where like James is being in a Star Wars skit
mm-hmm.
and has never seen a Star Wars movie, or
Wow,
he's playing like he loves Iron Man, and the Marvel movies are too PG-13 for him,
wow,
and so we've been slowly like the more the kids have a little bit of agency and I kind of know what they like and don't,
mm-hmm.
it's been really interesting to try to adapt our workflow to make it fun for them.
Wow,
And as young, like working with young kids, both my children and the children on the Toys R Us commercials, the fun of it was trying to create a game that would elicit the same amount of joy that
mm.
I hope comes through in the videos.
Oh
Like
definitely,
anytime they're not having fun trying to like make the skit work that dad thinks will be really funny on YouTube, like if I try it 3 times and on the third time they're not, it doesn't work, or they're starting to look fatigued because like I don't get what you want me to do, and I'm like, this isn't working, like
it's
this is
okay,
stupid. But like if mom's around, like half the time mom directs this stuff. Again, my wife Mandy will direct them through stuff while I'm filming, and I'm paying a lot of attention to the visuals and how the visual effects will come in. And she'll have like production design, like built a laboratory in her house
Wow.
and costumed the kids and um, keep their spirits up so we can film a little commercial for something. And it's been neat because it's been a yeah, I mean, I know I'm blabbing, but
No,
it's
I mean,
as they
it's
evolve, it's really cool because I'm changing as a parent and as a creator
right.
working with talent.
I mean, and that plus the talent is getting older, so I feel like the comprehension of understanding and the direction becomes a lot easier. Like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
what they got like 3 or 4, okay, 6 or 7, and then the fact that they've been doing it and the comfortability of it, and just that plus the learning aspect of and then seeing something like from a creation standpoint, like okay, they can see it and they can see how it's been created and they get an understanding. And I feel like even if they don't go into visual effects or anything like that, they get to understand, okay, this is how things work in the visual. And I feel like for a young child to see that, just to go through the understanding and watching things being created is like super cool, like super vital for like learning and growing, because you can take that applied knowledge and apply it to, you know, to math or something like that. Like, okay, and then any visual, anything, and they can make things kind of like, because I'm a visual learner myself, so
Oh yeah.
just like, you know, and I went to this computer class when I was like, I don't know, I was like 11, right? And I was like, dude, I'm not getting this code right. It was like basic HTML, and the guy just, he erases the whiteboard. He just started drawing like squares to explain how websites work. And it's like imagine chords, and from that's been my basis of like understanding how websites work. Okay, there's just strings connected to different pages and stuff like that. So I mean, I definitely think it's like it's hugely you know, beneficial and whatnot. But here's my question. So how do you come up with your ideas? Like, how, I mean, there's so many different ideas. It's like, it's like imagination of children sometimes. It's like them playing around. So how do you come at are you sitting down with a sketchbook all day, or like how do you get the idea?
like, honestly, unless one of our spots is promoted, like a, you know, we're doing a commercial for a toy or something like that, like unless we're sort of like forced into like what could you do creative with this thing, the scenarios are always just some like the spark is always some game that the kid loves to play.
Mm,
And a lot of the time, like Mandy will call me in and say, like, Sophia's learned to climb in door frames. You've
mm,
got to come get some of this. And so she's really proud to show me that she can climb in a door frame, and I'll go over, film her doing it, and kind of on the fly, I'm trying to imagine what does this look enough like how could I transform the scenario into something cool? What can I film? Also, like I don't want to make her repeat it too many times
right.
because like you'll like that'll be weird. So um there's this interesting like balance point we try to get where like, oh, the kids did this really funny thing and they think it's hilarious, try to come capture it somehow.
Wow.
And so my wife sees those moments because she's with them,
Mm,
and I'll run out and try to figure out either with her, like she'll say like you've got to turn this into like a slots canyon that she's climbing up, and I'll try to execute that, or I'll see them jumping over stuff and I'm like, oh, that would be a great Star Wars corridor that they're jumping over or something like that.
that's
And
awesome.
yeah, it's a weird, like all of us work together to sort of like see something that the kids are genuinely enjoying doing and has some action to it.
Let me ask you. So, what equipment are you using? Because, like, I know some things are probably, you know, spontaneous. Like, are you like big production? Is it we dropping reds in there and like cranes and drip? I mean, like, or is it like shot specific to like certain things?
I am 90% of the time.
Wow.
My iPhone, I'm filming on there, and even at 30 frames per second too, which like extra roto
Wow.
and crap.
Uh
But it
huh.
also looks like home video because that's the like if there's an aesthetic to it,
Uh
it's
huh.
supposed to look unpolished to some degree. Which also like it's funny
Yeah.
because the trade-off is like your effects don't have to look that good if they're framed in this handheld looking thing because
Right.
people don't expect to see a
Yeah.
visual effect in there. And so when you see it, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
And
That's it.
so I'm usually shooting with my iPhone. And every now and then we will film. I have a Canon, just a 7D Mark II, which
Mm-hmm.
still shoots like compressed, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not, like a super camera or anything like that, but it has a really great autofocus
Mm.
for running kids.
Nice.
So it works great for me, like running around and not knowing exactly what to expect and
Yeah.
still capturing them pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
And like good enough for me to make their stuff look filmic if I want to, because that's the effect or the gag, but also like it can look totally home video esque at the same time. And it's a weird line to straddle. Like sometimes we'll try to move, it's supposed to be a cinematic thing happening in a home video, and
Right.
sometimes it's supposed to be a home video that completely morphs into you're walking into a movie or something like
Wow.
that.
That's amazing. So when I'm going through your channel, I'm noticing a trend is more like geared towards kids. And then I seen the Boston Dynamic video. I was like, oh, this is this is for me right here. And it's I mean because I seen it. I don't know if I saw it on Twitter first because I see like I go to your YouTube is my hub for your content, right? But it jumps across like certain socials, so I might catch it on Twitter and be like, okay, retweet just so I retweet things so I can just go ahead and watch it again, and then I go ahead and find the original source. But that Boston Dynamic scenes because I've seen that I don't know. I guess I'm jumping around here, but so I don't know what would be your greatest hits. I feel like Boston Dynamics got to be your greatest hits album. Like it's just
That definitely was. And that's the kind of energy that, like, as a creator is like really like individually like separate from like my wife and my friend Josh, who
mm-hmm.
like who we all contribute to Action Movie Kid and the spirit of that. I like to, if I see a video that I think could be spoofed or it reminds me visually
Mm-hmm.
of something dark or dramatic, one of my favorite things is to kind of like genre,
Mm-hmm.
like mix something up, like make something like scary if it wasn't meant to look scary. And when I saw that Boston Dynamics commercial, I thought like, man, this is straight up scary. Like,
Yeah.
and it's filmed well and it looks like a thing, and he's helping. But what if it were just going through there and just like obliterating everybody?
Yeah.
And I was busy as I get, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm slow at finishing projects, and so they'll all always end up piling up on my desk or whatever. But I was like, I will take, like, I'm gonna wake up early this
Mm-hmm.
morning and I'm gonna give myself 6 hours. I'm gonna work from 3 in the morning until 9 a.m. and just like, I know that I got to start work at 9, but I want to
Mm-hmm.
post this in the morning because I
Wow.
saw this video like while I'm going to bed and just thought about it in
Wow.
my sleep, and
Like
I'm like, I've got to do this.
like
So
I mean, it's from a technical aspect, it was like amazing. The fact that you went in there and it was like, cause I seen the original video, but it didn't stick with me like the original one before you went through it. Like I seen it, I was like, I've seen those robots before, whatever. And then I seen that video, I was like, did I miss this? Did I was I just glazed over? It was like, because then a conspiracy theorist friend of mine said, "He's like, see, robot taking over, man." So I had to look at it. So, is this a report? Was it? No, I was like, nah, this is just stage. So it was amazing, man. Do you plan to do more content like that for adults in the future, or?
I think I kind of do, and I'm a little bit split on how the branding will work.
Right,
If it's which like I hate branding,
right.
but but yeah, like there's certainly this split where like there's this easy like low hanging fruit stuff like that I want to do,
Right.
and some like it's a little bit more sardonic and it's a little bit more grown up or adult. But I love the audience that I have on Twitter. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like they know me, the
Right.
almost 40-year-old visual effect dad guy. But I also love the idea of families watching stuff on Action Movie Kid and
Yeah.
being inspired to create things as families and stuff.
Definitely.
So I don't really have a plan as to how to split them up. For now, you'll always see my more silly,
Mm-hmm.
either political dark or grown up kind of stuff on Twitter, um, as the Action Movie Dad at Action Movie Kid handle. And I think Action Movie Kid, I'm making a concerted effort to
Yeah.
work on that with my friend Josh Pruitt,
Mm-hmm.
who's amazing. He's an Emmy nominated writer, wrote for
Wow.
Phineas and Ferb and Last Kids on Earth,
Oh wow.
and was Mandy's office mate at DreamWorks for a while before he got to even have a creative role at a studio, and
Wow.
so like we've grown up with him,
That's awesome.
and he really gets it. So we partner with him to come up with ideas or try to like figure out how to schedule out Action Movie Kid a little bit more. Mandy is always coming up with ideas or reminding me that like, hey, you wanted to do a Halloween episode, and it's like, you know, October 28th. Yeah, speaking of biggest hits, of like the Twitterverse kind of thing, one was we were filming this Halloween skit, this overly elaborate trick or treat skit where my concept was, oh, the like all these classic movie monsters will show up for a trick or treat, and the kids need to give them an on theme candy to go away. And I love how the video turned out. I think it's a really
awesome.
great, like,
Awesome.
short. But as we were brainstorming that, my wife said, well, James is in his Deadpool costume. You should have him take off his mask and he's Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah, seen that one.
And I was like, that's cool. It doesn't fit this thing. So I was like, yeah, we should do that. And then kind of forgot about it. And then like on Halloween morning, she was like, oh, did you film that Ryan Reynolds thing while we were like on set the other day? Did I not see that? I was like, oh man, I totally didn't at all.
Oh wow.
And so I was like, James, come in here. We gotta film that thing your mom mentioned. And like quickly filmed that and like threw it up like the same day, which is rare for me, like to try to like do an edit and post it in the same day. But once that was online, I posted it on like Twitter and Instagram, I think. And Ryan Reynolds like DM'd us like right after it had gone up and was like, oh my God, dude, like, can I share this? I will credit the hell out of you. And did, and retweeted our video as well, which has like 11 million views on Twitter, which is definitely our like far and away most successful Twitter video. And it was all something that like my wife was like, you should do this. I think it would be funny. Dad forgot to, and then rushed to make up. So listen to your wives.
To
your wives.
That's an amazing. So you did so what is your average turnaround? Because that seems like a fast turn. What is your like? Okay, if I have an idea today, I should have it rendered by such time.
Like I would say that almost any effect that I'll take on, like if you say like a 10 seconds long effect shot, I can probably do any of them in about 8 hours or maybe 16 hours.
That's good.
But the challenge is more knowing like I also have a part-time job, and 3.5 days of the week I'm totally occupied. And now there's COVID, and those extra couple of days easily get eaten up just by like kids being around and like, you know, there's no school and all of these things going on. And so finding that time and also being like a responsible member of the family have been challenging. So we have a backlog of Action Movie Kid videos, which will get made sometimes. Sometimes that's what I'll do if I'm like, I got 2 free hours. What did we do that was maybe easy enough that I could quickly throw it together, and I'll, you know, throw one out like that. And sometimes we'll have longer projects. Like we have, I think, 4 longer pieces that are shot that are like shorts, and they require 40 or 50 effect shots a piece. And so they've been sitting like on hard drives for
that sounds awesome though
years, some of them. So I don't know when I'll refilm them, or I mean when I'll get to doing the visual effects. The kids did amazing performances and they're really funny, but they require a lot of dad's work on this side to do. And so sometimes we hit that momentum to like make one the same day because the schedule lines up, and sometimes I'll be like, sweet, it goes on the hard drive and it's among the other, like I think we have something like 120 episodes, or, you know, like clips that we've filmed that are supposed to become something, and 4 shorts that have not been made yet.
So are you looking to get into more longer form content?
I think for a while I loved telling a little bit of a story with them, aside from just that like
the moment,
instant moment. And it's hard because when I do a short, people will be like, I want to see the instant moments, and when I do the instant moments, people are like, you should make these into a longer short. And so
Yeah.
yeah, it's difficult because I can either spend 6 months not releasing any short
Oh
videos
yeah.
and get that short out and hope it's great, but then it maybe performs just as well as a 10-second Ryan Reynolds taking off his mask thing, and I'll go like, what did I do? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I
That's
mean, like that's every creator too. So like
yeah.
every creator has that version of like, oh, this was the stupid sketch that I did because I needed to get it off my mind while I was working on my
Yeah.
opus over here, and they'll be like, no, 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 that one, I like that thing
Yeah,
over there.
just that thing I just 5 minutes, but this was 10 years of working. Yeah, that's
So
amazing. So, are you a laptop guy or you're like desktop guy? Because I know
I
you're Apple guy on the iPhone side versus the Android.
Yes. So I film on an iPhone
Mm-hmm.
because I love the way I've just been so used to that phone and the
Right.
camera for a long time. But I've grown up pretty exclusively working on PCs.
Mm-hmm.
I used to always build my own systems, and recently, um, Puget Systems sponsored this awesome box that I'm working with now.
Ooh.
It has, because I think like 5 years ago or something, when I was always working on a company computer. I just lost track of what hardware is out there. I don't know what processor numbers mean anymore. I just know like I need a really good
Yeah.
graphics card. I need a really good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And Puget Systems have been doing some cool stuff with Corridor Digital, or
Yeah.
just Corridor now, and sponsoring stuff. And they got in touch with me, and I said like, I want to do what they're doing. Like what's
Yeah.
going on? And
Yeah.
so they sent me an amazing system. I'm going to be
Awesome.
talking about it a little bit in my the next Red Giant
Are you
tutorial.
are you looking forward to? Because I know Red Giant. I like updates, even though I'm not like that's not for me. But like, oh, I love look updates. Are you looking forward to anything coming up? Like any software tools that you're like, okay, I gotta get this
Ooh.
software. Anything that you, I know Red Giant's constantly every 5 minutes like, oh
Yes.
yeah, we got all these new features. Like, yeah, the last feature was awesome. I'm just incorporating these guys, and you're like, oh, we got some more for you. So are you looking like anything you're looking forward to for us
Like,
technology wise, even if it's just not software or hardware? Like, I can't wait till this comes out, or
oh sure. I mean, working at Red Giant, like there are so many things that they're doing that I'm like, oh my god, like once that's available, this will
yeah.
be great. Like that's the thing that I always wanted to do with X, Y, or Z. So what I love about working there is that like I get to really play with all that stuff that
Mm.
isn't available to people yet, and
Oh,
like
that's
figure out how to
awesome.
use it ahead of time, and that's a lot of fun. But one of the things like outside of that I've been really fascinated by is all the advances in machine learning, like
Yes.
Adobe's Sensei.
Mm-hmm.
Doing the new rotobrush tool is
Yeah.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I've rotoscoped something like 30,000 frames of James or things for
Wow.
Action Movie Kid videos
Yeah.
over the 6 year span
Yeah.
of its YouTube history, because I don't really work with green screens that often because they're kids or
Yeah.
they're at a playground or whatever. And
Yeah.
so like I don't do a setup. I just want the kid to do the fun thing without the distraction. And so I roto everything. But seeing something like AI being able to really competently roto something with a lot less hand holding than you used to is amazing to
Yeah.
me. There's a new gosh, I can't remember what it's called. It's called like Camtrack AR, an
Um.
app that allows you to film and at the same time is doing an AR track of your
What?
room that pairs that data with the video when you import it into After Effects,
What?
which is
That's
and the
amazing.
tracking is phenomenal. And so something like that's just come out. I'm really fascinated in seeing what people are able to do, what data is available from cameras,
Yeah.
what AI technology, like content aware fill for video was
Yeah.
a game changer for a lot
Yeah.
of the stuff I do, because half the time it's like background replacement is what I'm doing because the kid flies up, so I gotta erase him
Yeah.
from the bottom. But
Man.
now I can stick, content aware fill my intern on it and just like work on this on the background rotor brush, cut them out,
Boom.
and suddenly like AI is doing all this stuff
Yeah.
that we always thought like hardware would do.
Yeah.
And it's really cool to see hardware like the camera being able to send you the 3D data of your room and some planes back like right when you bring it into After Effects. You can just have it to begin with. So people are going to be able to do such amazing stuff. Like I'm jealous of these like 16-year-olds who are like me when I was in high school, who are going to be like, oh yeah, you just you have the computer do that thing and then do this thing, and like here's this creative thing I came up with because that was a given for me coming in, you know.
There's a
so it's exciting.
There's a YouTube channel called 2 Minute Papers. I don't know if you have you heard of it, and they have all this like possible technology. I don't know. I don't know how the process goes, but it's like all this technology that's kind of coming out. And sometimes it's like stuff sponsored by like Disney, and there's like their stuff. It's like in its rawest form. Like it's like you can incorporate into different software, but it's like it's amazing what the machine learning is. It's like you see some of this stuff is like, wow, how is that even possible? They had one thing was like they had a piece of foam. They had like all these wires connected to the foam, and they would bend the foam, and then in the computer land, the foam would actually bend. So they had like a model in some 3D program, and they would bend it, and it would bend simultaneously. So they was able, and it was so much accuracy with the wrinkles and all that, and they would shake it, and it would shake real time. It was shaking. It was like you watch, and then they would start applying like liquids to it, and it was just amazing. Like I know a lot of that stuff is like. It usually like so you watch some of the old stuff, you say, oh, I seen that incorporated in this, I seen that incorporated, but it's just amazing to see it's in the raw. So I don't know the process of they make something and they sell it to some 3D. I don't know how that works, but it's amazing to see the machine learning, like especially in our field, to see it actually the possibilities. Like okay, this is possible. It hasn't been implemented and it's probably has some bugs, but the possibility of that.
Like knowing that like deep fakes. Like if we could harness that better than like, you know, modeling for, you know, for like de-aging and just all the things that are potential or just like complete actor replacement is absurd. It's all the stuff I didn't know could be done. So
it's super possible, and it's becoming more easier and faster. Like the machines are getting a lot. I mean, we overcomplicate what we're doing is more complicated, but like the machines are getting a lot faster. You know, it's like it's crazy to think like, wow, like I don't know, 8 years ago this wouldn't be possible. Like there's no software for it. It'll be a long application. You have to send it off. It would be a lot of work. But something like consider where it feel. Like just the rotor brush. Like just I remember I was my first job at the studio. I was just green screening. So you know a lot of stuff. The green screen is terrible. So you got a rotor. It was like painstaking. I was like, I wish I had the roto brush. It was like paint, like a shoe. It's like, draw it again, and draw it again. And then it's a blur. Then it's how to put it blur the shoe. Like, oh my goodness! And the ground right there. So then I had to take it and make a fake shadow on the ground and 3D track that. And so it was like, but now it's like the 3D tracker is built right into After Effects. Bloop bloop bloop. Drop that in. Shoot a little shadow. It's a lot. I'm not saying it's super fast. I'm just saying comparatively to what it was last time. It's a lot.
I mean, I think that's a really good point. Like the tools are way easier and way more functional and competent, but I think the underpinning of them is still a good artist who knows how to use them well. So like I always hate when like, oh, that's all CGI. Like if you ever hear somebody say that, like,
cringe.
Are you kidding me? Like
triggered.
That means there was a team of 60 people worked their asses off to get this on a screen in front of you, and half of the good stuff you didn't even notice. So like, don't like come down on the art. Like the artistry required to still do this stuff, or like the creative mindset to do them, is still always going to be there. And like I said, I am both jealous and will continue to be mad at these creators who are going to be amazing at all this stuff, because they'll just know like, okay, like video is my playground.
That's it.
3D tracking, object removal, and rotoing is no problem. So what is the next step? Like, what do I do that you've never heard of?
Here's what I've noticed on the flip side of that coin. Like the tools are more accessible, and if you have the skill set and the knowledge and the creative to make it happen, but now you're expected to do a lot more. You know what I mean? Because I was expected just to cut shots out, and I had all day. I was, headphones, and I was just listening to music. But you're expected to do a lot more with a lot less people. Yeah, all right, I'm sending this to the roto guy. I got my keying guy. I got the compositing guy over here. And now it's like, okay, what do? You just do everything? Like who? I feel like nowadays, I don't know. You're expected to do a lot more in a short amount of time.
Yeah, specialization has like totally disappeared. They'll be like, hey, we need like a social media manager, like who can like edit our stuff, handle our web pages, do this stuff, and shoot and edit some stuff. And like
it's like, yeah,
like with what crew? Like, oh no, you just like what equipment you got?
Yeah, and we go
like those are all roles. Those are all.
Tossing some graphic design. I was I don't know, a couple years back. I was applying for this opportunity, right? And it was like, look, we're looking for a motion graphics guy. I was like, all right, cool, I got this. You get there, it's like, yeah, motion graphics. We need you to do that. A little special effects. It's like, okay, a little bit, yeah. And we need you to do some web design. I said, okay, little graphic design, and we need to do some coding. Python. I'm like, who is this person who knows all these different things? Like, it's this huge stretch, and they throw web in, like it's just like, yeah. Do a little Python, little coding, little HTML, little JavaScript, little Java. It's like, yo, what? Yo, I'm out. I can't JavaScript. No, you got the wrong guy here. So it's crazy how we're expected to do. I think, I just think like the more things become, I guess, accessible, and it's still, even if it shrinks the job down to like from 12 hours to 6, still it can't be done in 3. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
I mean,
it's a weird world, yeah.
What would be your advice for somebody coming into the field? Like, they say, look, I want to be the action movie dad. I'm gonna do some things along the line of what you got going on. What would you point them to do? Like, they just came out of high school, they're green. Would you say go to college or just YouTube it? Or
I would say get practice doing the thing that you want to do the most, or the thing you get the most joy from doing.
Okay.
And honestly, like at this point, I have a hard time recommending. Like, I went to film school and it was really cool and an amazing experience. I learned a lot about how to work with groups of people during that. But at the same time, all of my visual effects skills are all learned from Andrew Kramer and Aaron Rabinowitz and Seth Worley's tutorials, like completely self-taught, or self in huge quotes, because it's really like this community of awesome tutorial makers who educated me in what I do. And so I think that my advice would be, if there's something that you have an aspiration for, really cool, because you can you can set it as like eyes on the prize kind of thing. But what you should do next is figure out, what do you enjoy doing enough that you would do it no matter what?
Wow.
Like, if you want to be a director or something like that, is it that your skill is pitching projects and convincing large numbers of people to see your vision enough to work hard for you and execute it? Like, that's a whole dimension that a lot of people wouldn't think of if, like, the question is, do you want to be a director? And it's like, no, I just want to be in charge of shit. But like, pardon me. But like, it's, if you realize, like with me, it was realizing I seem to understand this program really well, and I can make it marketable. I can do a lot of stuff with it, and I understand it so well that I can explore within it and use it to expand my creativity, which has always been kind of immature and like blow up stuff, like have the guy fall in lava, and then once it becomes my kids, it's like have them, playing the lava game or having a dinosaur chase them. It's so juvenile, but it's stuff that I'm obsessed over, and the stuff that like I love, married with the skill set that came the most naturally, and almost like I have this imperative to do the kind of stuff that I'm doing. So when you're coming out of high school, if you feel a little directionless, think of what you were the most energized doing during that, whatever, like whether it was creative or practical. Like, if you're really good at working with numbers, seek a field that does that. If you're really good with your hands, seek a field where you get to work with your hands a lot, because that love and that passion will show through in any form of these things, and will, I think, lead you a lot more than trying to chase something. Like, lead yourself where you can,
Yeah, definitely true. So I've seen, like we talked about offline, but I've seen your work with furniture. I don't know if you take the title of a carpenter. But so if you couldn't do what you're doing, like if what you're doing right now wasn't an option, I feel like what you do, like everything kind of bleeds creativity. You like to produce and make things, but if you couldn't, would you be a carpenter? What would be your like? Okay, if I can't do what I'm doing right now, I would probably be doing like taking the same advice, following your heart. What would it be? Would it be just like I can't do anything else, or would it be like, oh, I can see myself doing X, Y, and Z, or
Absolutely. Like, I think that I need to make things, and the tools that I'm the best at making them with are video and graphics and things like that. But take a computer away from me, the desire doesn't disappear. So something like, yeah, the post you would have seen of me, we had two love seats in our house, or two recliners in our house. And while my kids and wife were away for a few days, I decided to saw the arms off of them and combine them into one love seat.
that's
And
super awesome.
technically, like, I've always tinkered around with being able to physically make stuff, whether it was props or working with wood. I mean, I'm married to an art department, like amazing like woman who is a handyman as well. And so like we have this garage full of tools to do things. My dad was always really handy when I was growing up. So I have this tangential like draw to making stuff, whatever it is.
That's awesome.
So I like to make puppets or little wooden sculptures for the kids. Or in that case, it was like, I'll try furniture. I think I understand every element separately. Like I know that it's just wood under all that, and I can screw wood together. And there's some cloth, and I can kind of sew. And there's foam in there, and I can shove foam into stuff. And I found a stapler that we can use that was like in an old garage. So
Well, you just kind of. So I can kind of sew. I can kind of. That is like amazing to me. Kind of sew. Like that's huge. I can't even. I have a sewing machine. And I don't know how I got the sewing machine. I don't know why I have a sewing machine. I have a sewing machine. I turned it on. And it started. I was like, oh, not doing that. That's amazing. I actually went downstairs, started looking at the couch. I was like, I have two similar chairs. I'm like, I wonder if I. It's like, nah, that's not happening. Let me stop. You know, inspiration is one thing, but let me stop not going crazy. But let me ask you this.
I mean, that story, like totally either ends with like this, like a success story, or ends with, honey, what happened to the couches? Spilled on him. I had to throw those out. I don't know.
What couches? Let me ask you this: would you like for your son to kind of follow in the footsteps? Because it seems like now he has a ground understanding of how, even though he might not necessarily use the software, you know, but he has an understanding of how things are made just by osmosis on the smallest part, not even incorporating with all you're teaching him and stuff like that. Would you like him to follow in your footsteps, or is it something like, don't do this, son, this is too hard, or, you know, how would you? Because a lot of times people are like, you know, because my dad was he used to build houses, and he's like, don't do real estate, it's terrible, do anything else. So I mean, what's your opinion on that?
So for me, it is like, it's sort of like when we're like trying to have them perform for us for these videos. I want them to do something that they enjoy. So I have always opened up the door for my son to be like, hey, like if you want to use a phone and shoot your own little video and then edit it on like iMovie on a phone, like he does hilarious little shorts or like horror movie trailers that he's filmed with his GI Joes and stuff, and like I love that because that was me. And then he'll also have these like other crazy aspirations that he loves, and like same thing for my daughter. Like she'll sometimes get really invested in the like making a video with me, and then on the other hand she'll really want to be a football player and learn about all the football moves and things like that. And so I'm trying to just use whatever time, energy, or like even privilege that we have to like freedom to let them do some of the things they want to do, just try to chase whatever direction that he's heading in, and hopefully guide him to be the best version of himself. Like the parts of me that I don't want him to become are like antisocial and obsessed with your computer and your Twitter feed and like want to like be doing this all the time. Like I want him to seek out human connection more than I have. Like, cause I'm an introvert who expresses himself through a computer. Like that's like, here's a thing and you can look at this and not me. And that's always been my life. And so like it works well for me, but like I want him to know like, hey, like you're going to be living with humans on this planet, it turns out. And Yeah, like that's why I think that like people being happy and
Mhm.
chasing something
Yeah.
that they enjoy doing is really great. And if you're privileged enough to get to do it and make a living out of it, even better. So,
That's awesome. That's awesome. I want to touch. You talked about being an introvert, and I'm like, so I have this thing because I feel like a lot of creatives. I mean, we just touched on it, but like being an introvert, I notice a lot of creatives are. I guess I would say in this field, right? In the I don't
mm-hmm.
even know what to call it, motion graphics, VFX. I feel like you could just if someone say, "Hey, we need some motion graphics," you can jump and do that. VFX, jump and do that. Hey, we need to do some graphics. I feel like you can just you
Mm-hmm.
have a multiple of skills that can be applied in different creative aspects. But I've
Yeah.
noticed people in this field are more introverts, right? And so I feel like,
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, it's interesting because they're like you're the weird combination, and almost everyone I've met is like this, is most of them have a short attention span,
no,
or like they're like things are going off and like they like absorb all this like, oh, that looks cool, like I would love to emulate that, or that looks cool, it inspires me to do this. So that's going on. And so there's this desire to perform to some degree, but where your performance stage like isn't this like,
yeah,
don't look at me, I have the shield of a monitor that I'm doing all my stuff on, like look at this.
yeah,
And so it's cool because you have a drive to do something and make something out of like these disjointed points that you see, and you like turn it into graphic design, or you turn it into a web page, or you turn it into visual effects or something like that, or like or going and filming a short video with friends, you know, if you're more like if you can get more people on board with your vision. And so yeah, like mine has always been like I wanted to be a puppeteer before I wanted to
ooh,
be
that sounds awesome,
in visual effects,
right?
and I feel like they totally relate. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing something where the performance isn't me,
Right,
it's this thing.
yeah,
And so yeah, like it's weird. So I'm super comfortable doing this,
yeah,
but like in my own personal life I'll be like I just want to like hide away and like work on my tinker on my thing.
man.
And
It's
so
I feel like someone has to do a study because I feel like what you're saying, I feel the exact same way, but it's mirrored by a lot of creatives like the reference of look at this that I create, but don't look directly at me. You know what I mean? Don't just stay over here. You can Google and goggle over there, but there's a buffer there of I can still be in my
yes.
comfort zone and a lot of creators want to work from home. It's not because they don't like the studio environment. It's just they can be in a comfort zone of being at home.
Mm-hmm.
And I've noticed like the way I guess the way things are right now with technology, you can be allowed in your comfort zone because a lot of creatives can work from home. I've been working from home for a while, and you could be in your comfort zone. You do not have to necessarily interfere. I feel like it's a good thing, and it's like a double edged sword. Like you should always go outside your comfort zone, especially what's going on now. Just having perspective and talking to different
Mm-hmm.
type of people, but at the same time, I feel like it's like a different because I'm not a big Twitch guy. I'm jumping on there and whatnot, but I'm seeing people. It seems like there's a whole like online community that's fully developing that's kind of catering to the introverts a little bit, but I feel like it's gonna be weird. I don't know. It just feels like it's a good thing, and there's like I feel like balance is everything, but
Yeah,
it's a different
balance is
it's a weird
everything,
time.
it's important. Yeah.
It's a
And yeah, it's yeah, knowing that like people are so accessible via technology.
yeah.
You're like on your phone and you're up all the time, and you might be on Slack or on like whatever, like you've got all these strings to people,
Yeah.
but you still get to experience them from your comfort zone. So it's hard to know, like I want to try to remind myself like, oh wait, who are the friends that I might actually physically run into compared to the virtual like voices that chime in on Twitter like all the time. Like they don't technically know me, like
Yeah.
I wouldn't, you know. So I loved, you know, pre-COVID I loved getting to go to conferences
Yeah.
or meeting people in person that I only knew on Twitter or
Mhm.
something like that, because yeah, trying to humanize people, that sounds so dumb, but like yeah, humanizing
Yeah.
the like
It's an
the
online
the
experience.
avatars you interact
Yeah.
with all day is really good to do. Like this is fantastic, and like I get yeah, it's
Just
like the
yeah.
most like unique human interaction I've had outside of the four of us living in this house
Yeah.
for the last,
Same
you know,
here.
like
Same here. Are
so
you
it's really nice.
so are you a daytime worker or a nighttime worker?
I am by heart I am a nighttime worker. I
Mm-hmm.
love to stay up all night. It's when I have my creative juices flowing. Not super great for a married with kids situation to want to like spend all evening and night doing stuff. So yeah, I've had a weird relationship with when my work hours fall, because I switched to this schedule where like I could fit in a full work day by starting my day at 3 a.m. and ending it at around 2 p.m. That way I'd work before the kids had to go to school, take my lunch break when they had to go to school, and finish off my work day while they were at school. And I thought like that's like I can do that and still be an involved parent and be around. I did that for about a year, and turned out that I still was like seeking extra work hours when I could, and apparently it's not super healthy. And the beginning of this year I had a seizure.
Oh wow.
Which was a terrifying experience, because I was at the grocery store with my daughter, and started feeling weird, started like feeling like this like halo of like, this is odd. I feel like I'm suddenly like drunk or I'm gonna pass out. I don't know what's going on.
Wow.
And so like said to my daughter, my 5-year-old daughter, like, hey, do you know what to do if daddy faints? Do you know what a fainting is? And she's like, oh yeah, like when you fall, like I remember her saying that, and that was the last thing I remembered until I was being like loaded into an ambulance.
Wow.
And yeah, like whether or not like realizing that my so many things played into that moment where I was like, oh man, I've only been like my watch tells me I've been sleeping like 3.5 hours every night for the last month, and I have such a tendency to do that. And when I was in college, I used to live on a weird schedule where I would stay up for 36 hours and then sleep for 8 and then stay up for 36, and just sort of, I don't love the constraints of time, but also my age is letting those constraints of time like weigh on my mortality a little bit more than they have.
You say it was 5 months ago, is that correct?
Yeah, it was it was I think the week before Valentine's Day or something like that, actually.
So
like, yeah,
you think it was not to dive too deep into your medical, but
yeah.
like, was it because of the lack of sleep and like just the constant working, or was it
like there didn't see like it wasn't because of anything in my brain, which is cool. And so like the best guess now is just like, dude, you weren't treating the machine well. Like it's gonna give out on you eventually. And so yeah, right now like is a real like check on both like physical and mental health. Like I'm trying to figure out that balance, like with my family who all have their same, like physical and mental needs, and figuring it out is always a big challenge, because being an artist who's an introvert is a very selfish lifestyle too, because like you get to like you want to shut out stuff and have your own time and do this stuff, but like being even part of the community of my family is a new challenge that is evolving daily. So yeah, I like it, and like my wife and I couldn't be better suited for just like delving in and being like, what is the real stuff behind
like, because
all this?
I look at the work and I feel like I could see the amount of hours, like, no, so I see the hours that goes into it, and then it's like you can see one video comes out, another video comes out, it's like, okay, the process of coming with the idea, like, I don't know what my mind always like, man, that's a lot of work. I'm like, I feel like hopefully he has a huge team, because if he doesn't have a huge team, that's a lot of hours. Because sometimes you do it one way and you get like 80% there. It's like, oh, that's not going to work. Let me back up and start it over and do it a whole other way. And it's like, oh, no, don't. After Effects, don't crash. No. When the last time I saved? No. So and then you have, let's say you have an ETA for some clients, and you have that whole stress measuring, like, oh, no, you look at the clock and all that. So I can only imagine with the amount of, because you're doing like, and there's another thing, when you're in a group, it's kind of, it's easier because you can't be relying on some of the people, like, well, and it's the emotional aspect of having other people console. You can all like, oh, this is terrible, and it's like a bunch of people in the room, oh, this is terrible, and you can all huddle together and just kind of get it out your system. But when you're working as an individual, that's just, for me, I found I like to work as an individual, but at the same time, you don't have the community, not even that they assist you in work, just community to feel like, hey, we're all in this together. You're kind of like a solo worker out there, and it's like, no one understands the hours I'm putting in there, and it's like 2 a.m. or whatever, and you're sleepy, and you know. So I can only imagine, because that's a lot. Like it's awesome work, like super awesome work, very creative. But I still like, man, that's a lot of work. that's a lot of I mean, because they're VFX shots, and you can drop them. Of course, if you just shot it on a red and did the same thing, you could drop it in a movie, and you can drop it in Stranger Things, like the shot you did where it was the same Stranger Things where you was driving, the kid was on the bike, and then the van flipped over. I'm like, well, there you go. You know what I mean? That's it. Drop a red camera in there, and you're good to go. But it's like, I'm sure, I'm gonna go on a limb, I'm sure Stranger Things had a huge, big team. You know what I mean? And you're cranking these things out. That's like amazing to me. It's like, oh my goodness, it's like, I feel like once you know how to do something similar, not on the level but similar, you appreciate the amount of time and energy. And like, I seen like a meme the other day, like they posted a picture of like, it was just like a CG lady, and it was like one comments were just like, that's okay, and like the 3D designer was like, oh, this is amazing, the skin, this and that. It was like, I feel like you appreciate more of, you know, I feel like when I can watch I can watch the same video 20 times, and I'm just watching it first for entertainment, second just like in all, third it's like, I wonder how he did this. And you have the tutorials on the other side, but I'm like, man, the amount of in the tutorials, I feel like, do people who are not in the field like an injustice, because they're like, oh, all right, 2 minutes, 15 minutes, that's nothing. It's like, no, he's cutting things down, and that's pre-recorded, and that's just how he figured out how to do it. You're watching it after it's been made. The hard part is it's coming up with that how to do it, like just how to get it to look seamless. And you know, Roto sucks, because Roto just messes up all the time, and it's like, oh, listen, you gotta watch it play back, and you gotta show people, and you not only doing the grunt work. That was what, like, okay, there's the grunt work of just executing that vision, and then it's like come with the idea of it. It's like two different things. Like, man, it's like, oh man, that's a lot there. Like, oh man, panic attack. Yeah. So yeah, man.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like the Cheap Tricks episodes, like I think I had pitched them as like 20 minutes tutorial, like you know, digestible, and then they started becoming these like hour-long crazy things. And it's so funny because like just even from my perspective, editing something that's an hour long, you just like you can't even step back to like quickly like watch it and see if it's working. You're just like, I just gotta trust that like I cut this first part all right, and like throw it to the group and say like, do I make sense anymore like after this? Like it's so crazy cut together, and I hope that I'm like not rambling or repeating myself, or like drop frames here and there and just be like, oh man, like of course, like the quality control curve goes down, but I do my best.
I mean, awesome work. I love to watch tutorials because like I prefer like when people stream it, just stream the whole thing. Just let me look up and say, okay, you're doing this, you rotoing, let me go. Okay, just stream the whole thing, because you get like it's very few creators are doing it. Like very small time people, like they'll stream it and they'll figure it out while you watch it. You know what I mean? So you get like, okay, I'm not the only one. How is he gonna figure this one out? And he's like, this don't work, this not work. And sometimes they just like they turn it off. They're like, oh, I'm out. But they come back with, here's a solution. But I mean, it's just like to see things. I feel like we live in such a day and age. It's like you can see things being made. You know what I mean? And somebody could, like you said, like Andrew Kamer and all these guys, they can show you how to do it, and not you have the same exact setup in your house. You know, you turn on After Effects, you're in the same exact world. You can click the same exact buttons and all that stuff, and it's like it's a unique learning experience that you just don't necessarily get in other fields, because it's like
it really is.
It's like, oh, he clicked this. Oh, here's a shortcut. If I hit the same exact buttons, it works exactly the same. So it's very unique. You know what I mean? And then somebody else can do it, and you can fuse different ideas and come with your own. So I feel like the creative and the tutorial basis are very unique, because I was watching your tutorials like, man, oh, I can use that for this. Hey, I could do that with this. I mean, I could take something you're doing for that, and I can use it for title sequence. So it's amazing.
I love that kind of jump. Like that's what I always hope. Like that was one of my intentions. Like as hard as I could, is telling people like, I'm going to show you how to do Bill and Ted Traveling Through Time, but like that's not the only thing you could do with this. Like I'm showing you electricity. I'm showing you smoke. Like this could be anything.
Exactly.
And I mean, there's a tutorial on YouTube for anything out there,
No.
even if it's like some like dude with like 7 views, and it's like how do you close this polygon hole in a
No.
thing on cinema? Like it'll be just something I don't know how to do.
Yeah.
But there's this wealth of knowledge out there, and like combined we are strong and can do all this
Yeah.
stuff. And so like that's sort of the community that will replace, like back to the earlier point of like each person is asked to do more and more like job responsibilities. Like you end up relying on this virtual community
Yeah.
of like I know people who will take like an editor, like will take jobs where they'll say like, can you work with this thing? And they'll just be like quickly like YouTube, if there are tutorials on it, like, oh yeah. I'm totally, yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so it's neat. Like the community is just, it's different. It's a different nature. So, but yeah, like anytime you can interact with a real human is,
that's always
is
good.
Fantastic.
I feel like Adobe with Photoshop had like the early days of Photoshop had the first community for me that I witnessed. Was like a tutorial based community, like it was people just sharing knowledge and stuff like that. And then it kind of grew to After Effects, right? But I feel like Photoshop was the first community, like everybody was just chiming in, and it was like, to me it was like the base program that a lot of people learn. And it was like you come like, okay, learn Photoshop, because you learn Photoshop, then it wouldn't teach you After Effects, but it'll set the groundwork for a lot of things that After Effects does. And so
it really does. Like that was the aha moment for me with After Effects, is like it looked so different to me, like especially back in those days it was like After Effects, you know, like 3.1 was the first one I used. And like you look at Photoshop from 1998 and After Effects from 1998 and you're just like, what am I looking at here? And then just someone like, I don't know if it was on Creative Cow or whatever, they were just okay, look at this, your layers panel, it's always over here in Photoshop, drag that down to this corner, and now put time bars here, so whatever you're doing with these layers happen over time. And I was like, those are the same things. And like just from there, like that little bit of just knowing, like someone just like the interface is weird, but your layers are just here and your thing is here. And starting there, it just you start to see the matrix. And just like I've still been trying to learn, like I learn new stuff every week still. Like I'm learning and trying to teach stuff as fast as I learn it, so other people can use this. Like, did you know you could do this?
And the crazy, we touched on a little bit, but the crazy thing is you can take the knowledge from one program, like just with with Blender and Cinema 4D, you can take the knowledge from like Blender and like, oh, I could do that in Cinema 4D. Oh, I could take that and do it in Photoshop, and I could do that same ideology in After Effects. It's like the knowledge is like, it's weird because it's like the principal knowledge is all the same for these programs. You know what I mean? You're still gonna have a mat. You're still gonna have keying, not keying, but like keying and keyframes and tuning and stuff like that. So if you learn keyframes in After Effects, you can take that to pretty much any timeline based thing and learn it. So it's pretty cool in that aspect that you can, like, knowledge is not wasted. You know what I mean? Like you say, look, I'm not gonna use this program anymore. I'm sure, like, I forget, there's some kind of, I don't know, there's like some almost After Effects program out there, and I open it up for like one day. It's like, it's pretty similar. Like you open up DaVinci, it's like, oh, well, this is not but Premiere. I can figure this out. It's like
once I find my buttons, like I will, like, this can make sense.
Yeah, and then where's my button? And there's always a tutorial for people who came from one thing to another. So I mean, it's super. It's a crazy time to be in. So I am not going to take even more of your time, and I do appreciate this thing, and I would love to do it again, man. I feel like we touched on a lot of things, but we can do deeper dives on any other topics. And I appreciate you, Daniel, coming on, man. It's early, you're early getting in there, so I appreciate you believing in the channel and whatnot. So, man, I definitely just want to say thank you, man. I want to say, thank you to, sharing your videos. I want to say thank you to, just sharing your family, allowing us to, just see, your kid grow up and the positive, because now we really need some positivity. It's great. We can really use some positivity out here. So just to see, your family and just them having fun and because, a lot of, my daughters love it. They binge it, like Volume 1, Volume 2, Volume 3. I mean, they sit there. I mean, I usually don't let them watch TV and eat, but I'm like, if they do something like really, really good, I'm like, well, shoot, I'm gonna let you go ahead watch. You go ahead watch your volume, and I'm sitting there watching with it, like, oh, pause it, like, hey, Dad, come on, stop it. So, man, I'm just, it really brings. Sometimes you just don't know the positive effects of your work. You just don't know, like, because a million people is like, it sounds like a number, but it's like a million people sitting there and watching it and enjoying it, and because no one's forcing them to watch it. So it's purely enjoyment. It's purely entertainment. It's purely, and usually it's families watching it. A lot of the content is families sitting around watching it and they're enjoying it and they're sharing it. I mean, and that's just from one side. So, I mean, it's huge. And we can really use that type of positivity nowadays. So just, I really appreciate it, man.
No, I appreciate it too. And yeah, I would love to come back and chat about anything. Like, yeah, I feel like I talked enough about myself, but yeah, anytime I'd love to chat about creative, what you're up to, all that stuff. This is fun.
Oh, this just touching the surface. We'll dive a little deeper. So, thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
We'll appreciate it. Thank you so much, man.
Have a nice day.